One of the most surprising things about cancer is that people assume the hardest day to be the diagnosis. Others expect it to be surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation. And yes, those days certainly can be and often are incredibly difficult. But after working with thousands of people affected by cancer, I have learned that one of the most confusing cancer-related moments often comes after. It comes when treatment ends. For months, sometimes years, people have been focused on a goal: get through surgery, finish chemotherapy, complete radiation, make it to the next scan, reach the end of treatment. And then that day finally arrives. The medical team congratulates you. Families celebrate, friends cheer. Everyone seems convinced this is the ending. Yet many survivors discover something unexpected. The treatment ended. The experience did not. The fear didn't disappear. The changed body did not disappear. The questions didn't disappear. The uncertainty didn't disappear. In many ways, survivorship was just beginning. Today, we're talking about why cancer's impact doesn't always end when treatment ends, and also about one of the most common assumptions in cancer care: the belief that healing requires closure, and why cancer often refuses to provide it. Let's talk about it. This is the After Cancer Podcast. I'm your host, oncology physical therapist, Dr. Leslie Waltke. For more than 3 decades, I've walked alongside people living with and beyond cancer. Whether you are a survivor, a caregiver, or part of a clinical team who cares for them, I'm glad you're here. Because life after a cancer diagnosis can feel uncharted and confusing, even when you have a great medical team. In this podcast, evidence, empathy, and the real human experience come together to help you navigate the physical, emotional, and practical realities of cancer and the life that comes after. This is the After Cancer Podcast, rooted in medicine, spoken in human. Hi, all, and welcome back to the After Cancer Podcast, brought to you in partnership with Cure. Whether you are a new or regular listener, I'm glad you're here. This is episode 18, The Myth of Closure: Why Cancer Doesn't Always End When Treatment Ends. And it is also the final episode of season 1. When we launched this podcast earlier this year, my goal was simple. I wanted to create honest conversations about life after a cancer diagnosis. Not just the treatment, not just medicine, but the human experience that follows. Over the last 17 episodes, we have talked about identity, fear, hypervigilance, survivor guilt, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, exercise, relationships, body trust, metastatic disease, and misinformation. And as I thought about how to end season 1, I kept returning to one idea: closure. Human beings love endings. We like completed stories. We like answers. We like certainty. Psychologists have long understood that our brains are uncomfortable with ambiguity. We prefer a puzzle that has been solved over one that remains unfinished. Researchers often sometimes refer to this as a need for cognitive closure. When uncertainty exists, our brains will continue searching for resolution. And that tendency serves us well in many areas of life. Yet cancer is not a puzzle that can always be neatly solved. Cancer introduces uncertainty into a life that previously felt predictable. It raises questions that often cannot be fully answered. Will it come back? Will I ever feel like myself again? Will this ache mean something? Will my future look the way I imagined? Cancer teaches something most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid. Certainty was never guaranteed in the first place. We just simply believed it was. Back in episode 2, we talked about the finish line myth, the belief that cancer treatment functions like a race. You start, you suffer, you persevere, you cross the finish line, everything returns to normal. But survivorship rarely works that way. I remember a woman who completed treatment for ovarian cancer after nearly a year of surgeries, chemotherapy. She imagined her final treatment day for months. She expected joy and relief. Instead, she sat in her car and cried. Not because she wasn't grateful, not because she wasn't happy, but because she felt lost. For months, she had structure, appointments, lab work, treatment plans, people checking on her. And then suddenly it was gone. Everyone else seemed ready to move on. She wasn't. Many survivors describe exactly this experience. Treatment creates a roadmap. Survivorship often feels like someone took your map away. One of the biggest misconceptions about cancer is that treatment is the entire journey. It isn't. Treatment obviously is incredibly important, but survivorship requires its own kind of work. Learning to trust your body again. We talked about that in episode 15. Learning to navigate changed relationships. We discussed that in episode 14. Learning to live with uncertainty. We explored that in episode 16. Learning to manage fear of recurrence. Learning to make future plans again. Learning to understand who you are now. A stark reality is that most people spend more time in survivorship than they ever spend in active treatment. Yet survivorship remains one of the least understood phases of cancer care. Cancer introduces change. Cancer changes schedules, priorities, relationships, assumptions, and future plans. One of the most profound changes is that cancer often removes the illusion of guaranteed tomorrows. Before cancer, most people assume there will be another birthday, another vacation, another holiday season. Cancer doesn't necessarily take those things away, but it makes us aware they were never guaranteed. That awareness can be frightening. It also can be clarifying. I have met people who changed careers after cancer, people who reconciled relationships, people who traveled, started businesses, wrote books, volunteered, and advocated. Not because cancer was a gift. Cancer is not a gift. But perspective can emerge from difficult experiences. In episode 1, we talked about cancer labels and identity. One of the most common questions survivors ask is, who am I now? For many people, cancer disrupts the story they tell themselves about themselves. The athlete who can no longer perform at the same level. The parent who suddenly needs help. The professional whose career was interrupted. The healthy person who no longer feels invincible. These are common experiences. Yet that is not everyone's story. Some people are diagnosed, complete treatment, recover well, and return to lives that look remarkably similar to the ones they had before cancer. They go back to work. They resume the activities they love. They experience few or no long-term physical or emotional effects. They close the door behind them and walk away. That experience is every bit as valid as the experience of someone whose life was permanently altered. There is no correct or normal way to live after cancer. For those whose lives have changed, one of the most important realizations in survivorship is that healing does not require becoming the exact same person you were before cancer. A life-changing experience may change you, your body, or your perspective, and that's okay. The goal is not necessarily returning to a previous version of yourself. Sometimes the goal is learning how to move forward as the person you are today. And whether cancer changes you profoundly or barely changes your life at all, I want to leave you with one more thought. You do not owe cancer anything. You do not have to become an advocate. You do not have to do fundraising walks. You do not have to volunteer, tell your story, mentor other patients, or make cancer part of your identity if you do not want to. If those things bring you purpose, wonderful. But if what you want most is to close this chapter, get back to your family, your work, your hobbies, your vacations, and simply live your life, that is just as meaningful. Surviving cancer does not create an obligation to spend the rest of your life centered around cancer. It simply gives you permission to decide for yourself what comes next. Now let's talk about moving on versus moving forward. People often tell survivors they need to move on. I understand the intention. It usually comes from kindness, but I think it misses the mark. Moving on implies leaving something behind. Many survivors cannot leave cancer behind, and honestly, they shouldn't have to. The alternative is moving forward. Moving forward allows the experience to remain part of the story without controlling every chapter that follows. Healing does not require forgetting. Healing requires participation. Several years ago, I worked with a gentleman who had completed treatment for esophageal cancer. He told me he kept postponing things, and I saw him keep postponing things. He would say, I'll travel when I stop worrying, or I'll start exercising when I feel normal. I'll enjoy life when I know for sure everything is okay. Yet one day he realized that he had built his future around a condition that could never truly be met: complete certainty. Eventually, though, he did book the trip. He started walking, reconnected with friends, not because uncertainty disappeared, but because he stopped waiting for the uncertainty to disappear before participating in life. That lesson stayed with me. So now I want to propose you examine this question. What remains? When people think about cancer, they often focus on what was lost. And yes, those losses deserve acknowledgement. But I also think we should occasionally also ask an additional question. What remains? Love remains. Friendships remain. Purpose remains. Curiosity remains. Humor remains. Compassion remains. Creativity remains. Possibility remains. I remember working with another gentleman with breast cancer who spent years waiting to feel like his old self. Eventually, he told me something remarkable. I finally realized I'm not becoming my old self again. I'm becoming someone new. For him, that realization was freeing. He stopped measuring every day against a version of himself that no longer existed. He started building a future with the person he was becoming. In part, this is due to the science of adaptation. One of the most fascinating findings in psychology is that the human beings are remarkably adaptable. Researchers studying major life events have repeatedly found that people often underestimate their ability to adjust to difficult circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean hardship isn't real. It doesn't mean cancer is somehow a positive thing. It doesn't mean cancer was sent to teach you something. It means that human beings have an extraordinary capacity to adapt, grow, and rebuild meaning after difficult experiences. Cancer survivors demonstrate this every day, not because they wanted the challenge, but because life asked something difficult of them, and they kept moving forward anyway. So ultimately, one of the primary goals in life is participation. If you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard me talk about participation. Participation in life, participation in relationships, participation in meaningful activities. This is what my area of oncology, cancer rehabilitation, is trying to preserve. Not perfection, participation. And perhaps that's true for survivorship as well. The opposite of cancer isn't certainty. The opposite of cancer is participation. Cancer often teaches us that certainty was always an illusion, but participation remains available. We can still love people, still create, still learn, still contribute, still laugh, still travel, still help others, still build meaningful lives. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned from cancer survivors is that life continues. Not always the way people expected, not always according to the original plan, but it continues. There are still birthdays, still conversations, still friendships, still opportunities, still chapters waiting to be written. Cancer may change the story, but it does not automatically determine the ending. Many survivors spend years waiting for life to return to normal. Eventually, they discover something important. The goal was never getting the old life back. The goal was learning how to fully live in the life that exists now. And here are your reflection prompts for episode 18. Number 1, What parts of your life remain deeply meaningful to you today? Number 2, where might you be waiting for closure before allowing yourself to fully participate in your life again? And number 3, what would it look like to write the next chapter of your story instead of rereading the previous one? And as we close season 1, I want to say thank you. Whether you've been here since episode 1 or just found the After Cancer podcast a few weeks ago, thank you for spending your time with me. I know there are countless podcasts, videos, books competing for your attention. And the fact that you've chosen to be part of this community does truly mean the world to me, and more than you know. My hope has always been simple: to make sure no one has to figure out life after cancer alone. And to every survivor, caregiver, family member, physician, healthcare professional, and advocate who has listened, watched, shared an episode, left a comment, or told someone about the podcast, thank you. Every message you've sent, every story you've shared, and every conversation you've started reminds me why this work matters. And this may be the end of season 1, but it is definitely not the end of the After Cancer podcast. We're going to take a short break to thoughtfully prepare for season 2. Our plan is to return in the early fall of 2026 with new episodes, new conversations, and even more practical, evidence-based guidance to help people navigate life during and after cancer. I look forward to then, and I look forward to continuing to building this community with you. If you have found value in season 1, I'd love for you to subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss what's coming next. And be sure to join our email list using the link in the show notes. That is the best way to know exactly when season 2 launches and to receive updates along the way. I'd also love your help in shaping the future of this podcast. What topics should we explore next season? What questions do you wish someone would answer? And what conversations are survivors, caregivers, clinicians, and families still not having enough? Send me your ideas. Many of the best episodes begin with questions from this community. And I'd love for season 2 to continue reflecting the conversations that matter most to you. Before we wrap up, a quick shout out to my friends over at ABCD, After Breast Cancer Diagnosis. ABCD provides free, virtual, personalized emotional support by matching anyone impacted by breast cancer with a trained volunteer mentor who has a similar lived experience. Learn more about getting support or becoming a mentor at abcdbreastcancersupport.org. Again, thank you for being here today, and thank you for being part of the After Cancer community. I want to leave you with one more final thought. Maybe closure was never the goal. Maybe healing was never about finding the perfect ending. Maybe healing is about continuing to participate in life even when some questions remain unanswered. Yes, cancer changed the story. There is no denying that. It changes bodies, relationships, plans, priorities, assumptions. But cancer does not get authorship. It gets a chapter, maybe several chapters, but it does not get the ending. And whether cancer is behind you or is a constant companion, as long as you are here, there are still pages left to write. There are still people to love. There are still places to go. There are still experiences to have. There are still contributions to make. There is still life to live. Your story is not over. Keep writing it. I'm oncology physical therapist, Dr. Leslie Waltke. Thank you for joining me. You'll find resources and the link to our email list in the show notes. Exercise like your life depends on it, because it does. And again, you are not alone, and you do belong here. Peace out. Let's talk again soon.